Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Winback, and on today's episode of RPG Radio, we're going to be back on Diablo 4, and today we're going to be talking about gear, some systems that will affect gear, and we're going to talk a little bit about the endgame for Diablo 4 that has been at least told to us at this point, since there was no actual endgame content in the open beta or the early access for the game so far. As always, it's a YouTube video. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe your heart out, but let's talk about some gear. Let's talk about the way that gear works and a couple of the systems that we had access to in the open beta and the early access of the game. Specifically, gear has four rarities at this point if we're counting common. So you got your white items, which are small, they are 0 properties to them, and you're probably going to toss them. Your next tier is going to be magic. Those are your blue items. They have 1 or 2 properties to them, while being better than common, but still pretty low on the rung. Then there is your rare items. Those are your yellow items, at least in the beta. Those are going to have more properties on them, with some of the boots and actually some different items having special changes to your kit. Specifically in talking about boots, some boots give you 2 charges of your baseline dash, your spacebar, or they will let you dash more often or lower the cooldown the more that you attack. Stuff like that can happen with rare gear. And then there is your legendary gear, your orange items. They are going to have more properties, or just about the same level of properties as your rares, but they are going to have 1 legendary affix that you can kind of focus your builds around. Specifically, if we're looking at the build that I'm playing in this video, and for the foreseeable future of all of the barbarian level videos on this channel, I had a pair of boots whose whole property was to allow my either kick ability or my ground stomp ability to reset my leap cooldown, which is beyond helpful because leap is an incredibly good movement tool, and at least as far as it was in the beta, is actually pretty good for damage on top of that. So basically I could leap in, use a kick or a ground stomp, leap again if I needed to get out. Since kick had 2 charges, I could kick yet again and get a 3rd leap charge if I was really feeling the Goomba stomp in my soul. But barring that specific example, there are tons of other affixes for legendary gear that you will use to flesh out your builds, to decide how you want to go. As of right now, Diablo 4 is not set for set pieces on release, so if you're a Diablo 3 player, you're going to be missing some of those things, but the way the developers describe it is that our legendary affixes, our legendary items, are going to feel like such unique modifiers to your character's kit that they should really take the focus away from set pieces and what those could do in Diablo 3. If you've been around this channel long enough, you know that we like build diversity here. There is freedom in the build in the games that we play. There is creativity involved in that sort of stuff. And if that is what Diablo 4 is going to let a player do when it comes to their build and how they want to build their character, I am going to 100% support that, regardless of the removal of those set pieces.
You've mastered your fear, but I still sense your pain. You miss your daughter.
My magpie. She's scared right now. She must be.
Go. Or stay. It is time to choose.
I trained her well. She's a good kid. Strong. She'll be all right.
You've chosen well, my child. To reach Rathma, we will need to cross a lake at the bottom of these ruins. It requires a ritual. I will teach you
As you wish, Mother.
Good. You're ready for lesson 1. Blood is the key.
What did you see this time? I don't need sparing. Tell me.
Lilith plans to teach your mother a ritual. One that needs blood. Your mother seemed receptive.
We have to reach them.
Now, one of the things that comes up in the open beta, the early access, for legendary items is a really cool mechanic that Diablo IV is taking from some inspiration. I would assume it's, Last Epoch inspired, or maybe this is a PoE thing. Don't quote me on that, though. I never played PoE beyond the tutorial. But that being said, your affixes on your legendary items, your legendary properties, so to speak, can be pulled off of those items, and at the occultist vendor can be placed on other items. So it's similar to Kanai's Cube from Diablo 3, but it is much more, you have much more freedom in Diablo 4 because you can take these properties from any weapon and you can put them on specifically the items that the affix is, all of these affixes that you take off go into an inventory slot, and they have specific items that they will let you put those affixes on. So all of the affixes have a little list underneath them to say what those affixes can be tied to. Some of them will say weapons, some of them will say armor, some of them have even specifically beyond that. If you're looking at weapon related items, two-handed weapons sometimes will get a double, they'll get 100% more of the bonus coming from those legendary affixes. So if you're playing something like a barbarian, you want to get a strong, maybe damage focused legendary affix, and you want to put it on that two-handed weapon to get more impact out of it. I think amulets are the other thing that I noticed that will give you not double, but they'll give you 50% more usefulness out of whatever the affix is that you're going for, or the property that you're going for. It is actually really cool the way that it all works and goes together, and it gives you a lot of freedom in how your build can change, what pieces are going to fit together, what pieces aren't, and how to swap things in and out. And the way that you'll apply those affixes is just to go to the occultist, who is he's a vendor in town, and then you'll choose a rare weapon, give that to him, and then you'll place in your affix, and he will apply that to the weapon. On top of being able to pull them out of specific weapons and store them in your inventory, you also have what's called the Codex of Power, which will let you pull those properties from specific dungeons in the world. Specifically in the beta, in the early access, when you would finish a dungeon, you would add whatever the property is from that dungeon to your Codex of Power. So you have this kind of permanent range of legendary properties that you can apply to anything in your inventory depending on what class you're playing, because a lot of the stuff in the beta was tied specifically to different classes. So you had to go find the barbarian dungeons if you wanted the barbarian specific properties, or you would go find the rogue for the rogue. I mean, it makes sense, right? You get where I'm going. So now that we've talked about the high level of the gear, let's talk a bit about the endgame. Blizzard released a whole lot of content. There's a lot to learn out there about these systems, but they dropped a recent video that anybody can look at with IG or GameSpot. Sorry, GameSpot is the people, and you can see a little bit more in depth on their thought process. But first off, there is the Paragon board. Once you hit your level 100 cap in Diablo 4, you'll get access to the Paragon board. The Paragon board is not going to be a bounty board. It's not a mission board. It's not something that you're going to go out in the world to access. The Paragon board is a huge board of passive and stat modifying squares, I guess you'd call them. Nodes, maybe, is what we're going with. But all of those nodes across the board will affect your character in some way, whether that's increasing a specific stat or a legendary node as they show up on the board, which is orange, and will have a specific modifier much like your gear. So there are nodes that will give you increased damage for the more enemies that are around, and you'll get to those nodes by filling out nodes previously for things like +5 intelligence, +5 strength, that sort of stuff. So basically you will snake a path through the board to get to the legendary nodes that you want, and those boards can be rotated around, offering you different paths to your endgame build, what you're looking for. It's going to be really interesting the way that this pans out. Paragon changed almost completely from what it was in Diablo 3, which was simple stat upgrades, and you just grind out more and more levels.
I will follow you to the ends of Sanctuary, Mother.
There she is. Mother?
Nirel. You're just in time. Beyond this lake lies the necropolis of the Firstborn. A trove of magic and knowledge. I opened the way for Lilith, but I could not pass through with her. I lack divine element, you see.
Stop.
But I can find it. I'm so close. I simply need...
Mother, stop! Look at what Lilith has done to you. You're writing in your own blood.
My little magpie. She awakened me. She showed me things I can't even put into words. Once I've finished, you will understand.
I don't care what she showed you. Please, let's just get out of here.
Oh, I see you. Yes, clever magpie. Trying to lead me away so you can take all this for yourself. This is my discovery, not yours. I will finish these runes with your blood!
So the next system to talk about would be the Nightmare Dungeons. Nightmare Dungeons, although we don't know a whole lot about them apart from what's been explained, we can assume that since a dungeon is going to be more difficult, it's going to provide better loot. But as far as the Nightmare Dungeons go, what you'll do is find what's called a Nightmare Sigil. You'll go to the Occultist, and you'll basically upgrade the dungeon that you want into the Nightmare version of that dungeon, which has some sort of modifier on it that will bring in new enemies, give the enemies different abilities, basically make the dungeon harder so that you will ultimately be rewarded with higher level gear. The next system up is going to be the Helltide events. These are overworld events that will pop up. You'll notice that the environment changes color. It's a lot darker, it's a lot moodier, and a lot bigger, badder enemies will be roaming throughout these Helltide events. When you complete whatever the event is, whether it's killing a monster, doing some sort of task, you're rewarded with the key to a cache. The cache exists out in the Helltide event, so much like a Nemesis cache from Grim Dawn. After you kill the Nemesis boss, you'll open up that cache and it will be full of gear, or stuff that you're looking for, hopefully at least. But you'll be rewarded after you complete the Helltide event with good stuff. Fingers crossed it's not the worst option of the endgame stuff. There's also an endgame system called the Tree of Whispers. This is basically your bounty board, except it is, well, it works about the same. It's just a big tree that you complete quests for, you complete different missions, and then when you return to the tree with those specific tasks completed, you get either like a cache, which is like a small box full of specific items. Maybe it's a group of boots, maybe it's a group of weapons. It could be any number of different things depending on the task that you complete, but it essentially functions the same way that a bounty board does. It's all just kind of away from town. You'll find the Tree of Whispers in the open world. And with those things out of the way, we have to talk about the player versus player element of Diablo IV, the Fields of Hatred. These are open locations in Sanctuary that you will be able to attack other players, and as you attack them, you get shards that you'll need to take to a place in the Fields of Hatred to purify. After they are purified, you can take them back to town to get specific cosmetics, other endgame items, but you can be killed and robbed of those shards as you are in the Fields of Hatred. So that makes it a gamble, as is PvP usually.
You were protecting me. I don't want to hate you. I'm trying. I really am. We're going to make Lilith pay for what she's done. So we need blessed blood. Go back to your Prava. Get that blessing. Beg if you need to. Whatever it takes. My mother started this damn ritual. I'm going to finish it. Meet me in the Mistral Woods.
Why there?
The Horadrim hid a vault there. Finding it was her life's work. So much for that. Maybe it will help with the ritual. If not, at least I can bury her where she'd want. I need time. I'm sorry. Just leave me.
But that is it for me, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out today. I will catch you guys next time. We'll release another one of these soon, along with the Grim Dawn lore content. But I appreciate you all hanging out, and once Diablo 4 releases, you'll see a lot more of that on this channel. Thanks again, everybody. Peace out.